Alright, hi there. Still getting things a little bit set up. It's been a while since I've done this, so my levels and everything might be a bit off. There is still music playing, so if you can't hear it, let me know. But so yeah, this is a bit of a test stream. I'm making sure all of my things still work. Bit of an excuse as well to start working on the next release of BurntToast, since it's been a little bit neglected. So let's get that out of the way. Also, let me know about sound, but let me know if you can read everything, if there's anything weird about what's on screen. Actually, let me turn on Potato webcam as well. So yes, the current release of BurntToast is at 0.7 and I'm working on 0.71, and I've got issues. Actually, the best way to look at this is probably the project. So I've got a bit of a backlog of stuff to do. The first one is awesome. The first one is, and it's something that's I've been neglecting even worse than BurntToast itself, is the help. I used to work on this sort of stuff during my lunch hour and just do, I'd call them lazy lunchtime streams, and I'd literally just work on documentation. But obviously that hasn't happened in a long time. So I've got to work on the help. I also need to do a generic about BurntToast help topic to sort of bring all the different concepts together. Looking down the list to see if there's anything we can nab tonight. External help, updatable help, yeah. One day. Actually, let's work on that. So I found out the other day when I started looking at Adam Driscoll's Universal Automation Desktop Edition that my app logo override defaults weren't working, which is a bit of a pain. So how the defaults work is BurntToast has a config.json file, and in there you specify location to an image. And by default that's pointing into the modules path and the BurntToast file. What I found is that that just outright wasn't working. Actually, let me... So let me take a step back and let's actually see what a toast is. So toast notifications are those things that fly out from different apps. Like you'd see this from Outlook, and if you subscribe to notifications in Chrome, it uses them too. It's a built-in API in Windows. And I'm using a community toolkit from Microsoft for it. And basically BurntToast is a wrapper around that makes it hopefully super simple to use. But when I change my app logo in my JSON file, it doesn't actually take effect. So, chasing down the rabbit hole, the first area where we reference that app logo is I'm on the preview, go away. So the first place that config's actually used is not in that. It's in the modules PSM1 file. And we end up with a script default image. Now, part of the problem with this is that the default image assumes that the image lives inside the module directory, which works fine for that default image, but obviously doesn't work if you want to reference something somewhere else on your hard drive or online. So what I might do, because let's keep that open, let's get the config and keep that open. Still want the flexibility. So it does end up using get item later in the pipeline. So it all ends up coming, yes, it all ends up coming through this new BT image function. And in here, if I remember correctly, no, maybe I don't. Man, it's been so long since I wrote this. I must be making some meaty assumptions. Oh, actually. Source right there. Yeah. Well, that's the code for downloading an image, because what we found is, despite the documentation saying you can reference an online image, it doesn't actually work. So this was put in to download the image and just reference it out of your temporary directory. But back here, what I want to do is, if that app logo path is relative, because keeping in mind this only works on Windows, so I know if there's a single slash at the start, I'm likely referencing a relative path. Let's try something. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud a little bit here, and I know I have a habit of cutting myself off mid-thought too. That's correct. But I've never shipped the default path in the config.json. Anyway, it'll work regardless. Do I want to use match? What's the special token for the start of a string? I never remember. It is a caret. So I want to try this. What did I just... That's better. Yeah, there we go. So effectively there, does that mean, yeah. What I'm going to do for testing this. I'll get rid of this in a minute. Is when I start running this, I want to see for certain what that output is. Now the next step is there's a big helper function, well, a big, help is the wrong word. There's a big parent function that sort of hides or obscures a lot of these other functions, which is the new BurntToast function. Here this specifies an image to override the default, but I believe the default itself I want to apply elsewhere, which is visual. It's either visual or content. No. Or binding. We have audio activation type actions. No. Image query here. App logo override. And at the moment, it's got no default, which is no good. Let me just make sure I'm 100% sure I'm not doing it in the code. No. So which actually then that's interesting. I think I've just sorry, that's on new BT binding. There's a app logo override where I can specify the default image, but then I've just had a thought then for why is my current default working? And I'm beginning to wonder if the whole root of my problem was explicitly adding the PS script root to the path. If app logo, yeah, see, so that's not even there at all. Where is it coming from then? Because the app logo is being applied at some point. If app logo else, circle crop. Ah. I can't. So it's going straight through to new BT image. If I don't specify an app logo. Oh, and here, my default image. That works. That means I don't need it here because this just calls No, that won't work at all anyway, because... So the parameter here is actually a toast generic class object, which only comes from the new BT image function, meaning passing in a path as a string isn't going to do anything there, which means my entire problem did all just come down to that. But let's test it a little bit. Just to make sure. So that should still work. Go on there, go on there. What? Right, I forgot the key combination to bring that back up. So, and sorry about the clicking. I forgot to bring home my quieter keyboard. Of course it did, but this is what I wanted to see anyway. So that's referencing the right location. And then if I find another image like that, although I don't know why I'm being so picky about... Yeah, I will definitely add that to the list. In fact, let's get something up to do that. Close all. No. Right. Let's bump that size up a bit. So we need to check if the assembly is already loaded. We also need to check that we've got a valid path to a file, to a valid path to an image, because that's going to cause issues as well. And yoink. Let's just borrow that so I don't forget. Thank you. Right, so now if I change my config, not normally. That's more so I remember what the hell is this file when I come back to check it later. So let's fair. Double slashes. Cool. So that one there's going to that. Now let's try something completely fake. So we'll go to a website and do the same thing. Good. Let's put that back to what it was before I forget. There. So in theory, the only thing I've changed... Oh, no, I want to get rid of that. Let's not do that. That'd be nice. So in theory, the only thing changed is only using PS script root if it's relative path. Right, so that's one problem fixed. From a user perspective, the default itself is always set in the config file. And I haven't actually seen many people change it in there. So it tends to just be me as far as I'm aware. Although if somebody out there is actually changing the default, let me know. I believe generally most people change, well, most people set it on the fly. Using the app logo there. So then they can put in whatever they want, and because blah doesn't work, it silently fails to a well, the default PowerShell icon. And then it should. That is a good question. Actually, let me chuck my picture in that directory. If I could do that directly. Josh.king. All right. Let's try it like that. In theory, that should work. Nope. Which means I should probably, instead of putting that in the PSM1 file, I can put it in the... What's the better way? Pass it through get item. That means instead of doing it in the PSM1 file... Oh, fair. in which case get item wouldn't work. But if I moved this construct here, well, in theory, I would assume, well, not currently. In fact, let's jump over to, well, no, because it's not, because of how I'm taking that in at the moment, it's not working at all. But what I could do is move this, matching to see if it is a relative path, and put that into new BT image instead on the source. And then the source can be relative regardless of where it's coming from. As in where in the file system you're calling it from. But if I'm using get item, it's relative to where I am in the file structure at the time, isn't it? True. Yes, you're absolutely correct. So this still works then for the default image, because in theory, if you're setting that in the config, you are looking at it relative to the module itself. But if you are specifying a source, that's when you're going to care about it being relative from the user perspective at the time they call. Yeah, cool. So source. And I already have a helper function that's going off to download images. So if it's a UNC or if it is a HTTP or HTTPS address, then I download it. If it's not, full name is the path, yes. Let me confirm. Cool. So with that in there, our source can either be a UNC path or a URL, and it'll download it, or use get item. That's potentially what happens if the file doesn't exist. We get an error. Now the question is, do we want an error, which is new, Or do we want the current behavior where perhaps well, at the moment it would fail silently and you'd still get your toast. You would just get it with the PowerShell icon rather than the big, nice looking one. Or, where was I going with that? Instead of failing silently, we could warn to say that the image doesn't exist, but still fail back to the PowerShell icon. Or we can throw a terminating error. And while I think on that, let's test this again. App logo is... So if that worked, that works. Hey look, it's a close-up on my face. So now relative links work. In fact, I said this wasn't a changelog, but relative paths on images. Might as well write it down so I don't forget. So what I'm thinking at the moment is if this does fail, I'm going to throw a warning saying, hey, the source doesn't exist, but still fail back to how does it interact back here? So if source, we want image.source, but there's a potential that that's going to end up being null. There always has been, which means there's always been the issue of potentially falling or coming through this execution path and ending up with an issue. So we should probably fix that at the same time. Jeez, those brackets. As good as it is in my dark theme, some of them aren't very easy to read. Let's disable that for now. Because some of those colours were way too light. That's a hell of a lot easier to read. Okay. It was still loading. Good. Yeah, same with PS Readline in general, because I've been trying to get a light color theme that works well in the new terminal. but I just, yeah. PS Redline and that bracket colorizer. If I could sort that out, I'd be very happy. And then if it's here... Yeah, it's one of those things where I keep going to play around with it. And to be fair, I've found really nice dark themes that I like for everything. It's the light themes where I start falling apart. And I tend to like switching over to a light theme when I'm presenting or streaming or something, because it's normally easier to read. I like the ISE theme enough, which is why I tend to jump over to it, but it's... yeah. Well, I found a theme I like in Terminal. It's just the PS Readline interaction with it, where it tries to make everything light yellow. Right warning. Right. That... I'll probably circle back to that and write a proper message for that later, but it'll get the point across for now. So that should load without any errors because I refreshed everything. And if I run my new BurntToast, I should get my... hopefully these toasts actually show up on the stream. I haven't... there we go. No, I can't do toast streams and have my webcam covering half of them. There we go. Right. So straight out of the box, the default one works, and I accidentally clicked on the toast settings. Then if we look at app logo and pull up my profile picture again, that works, and that's a relative path. If we go back to there, we should be able to say, hey, do it from the full path, that works. And then if we put something in here that doesn't exist, we get a warning saying it doesn't exist, and it fails back to the icon. So the user still gets the toast, it's just not as pretty as it could have been. One more thing is, does it try and resolve the path? Of course it will. Well, no, sorry, it'll try to resolve the path. Where did I put it? There. So if I make this one something that doesn't exist, it just gives me the path as provided, which makes sense. Cool. So that all works. So summary of that, okay. Oh no, 4 characters over. Oh well. So, strangely, this has already been a little bit more productive than I assumed it would be. Right. Since I'm in here and I've already got it in my notepad, ooh, good idea. So use a combination of get location and join path to extrapolate a full path what the user targeted. Let me put that in my rainy day. Yeah. Path. On. There. No, and I actually wanted that because I'm going to have a look at this. We shrink that down because I forget the key combination to bring it back up. So we've got our library there for each type in library. So I want to avoid re-importing the libraries if they... Huh. That error message is actually my own error message. And I can tell it was a very long time ago that I wrote this because I'm not using the one true brace style. So that needs a fix. And this is me getting finicky with myself. Oh. Do it that way. Good. Much happier. Right. Much happy camper now. Right, so the suggestion was... if we look down here... It's really bad when it's myself I'm having the formatting argument with. And I had to turn off the automatic formatting on save because I kept pushing random formatting changes through to people's repos. So what's actually... do I see... No, I don't. Of course I don't. Yes. Yes, but now I've learnt the right way for my formatting to work. I done something dumb. There we go. that's better. So I've got one DLL. Oh, there. So the name from assembly. So my struggle is, I like the crowded else. I'm on the fence about the crowded catch, but in order to be consistent, I've given up and just done the crowded catch. Now, I'm assuming what I want is basically this. Oh, that's not what I want. No, cool. So the full one there. And if I go somewhere where that isn't loaded, awesome. Let's go with something even more generic than that. One of the most base toast things you can get. Binding, then visual. Let me remind myself how this all fits together. So a toast has content. Content has a binding. No, bonding has content has visual. Visual has binding. Binding has all the other crap. Which means the base level thing is content, which is this one. Which means this is my most important class. So we grab that and we do, oops, that. And it just works. Let's throw an error action stop in there just to make sure. But in theory, with that, we should now fine. Not get error messages anymore. They all right, you're cool. So yeah, that works because I'm only importing one DLL. So this works for now because I've got one DLL. If I ever have to add a second one, you're right, it's going to stop on the second one. So my problem is that I don't know how to pull a class name out of the DLL. Yeah, so I've written it so that I can just drop extra DLLs in there and they'll be imported. I don't know that that's ever going to be the case. I could just add... I really don't want to build a... I was going to say... Let's try that. I was going to say, I could build a hash table with the name of the DLL and the class from it that I'm expecting. And just build on the hash table as I build the hash table up as I load, as I add DLLs. Yeah, that's a few. But it's not all that slow, which... It's definitely a lot quicker to write, that's for sure. Make a note for myself so I remember what the hell this thing's for. So the name of the DLL is huge. It's only 103 columns, it's fine. No, not base name. Name will do the job. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a lot quicker than what I was going to write. I was going to do a where statement and... No, okay. Fair enough. So this is... There. Just so I can see what's going on. Cool. let's do a fresh session. So on the first load, it loaded. On the second one, it's already loaded. Awesome. And in theory, that then means if I add a new DLL, as long as I remember to chuck it in the map, it'll work. It's shameful how long that's been an issue. And I've just dealt with it. And I probably should put more verbose. Put some more verbose stuff in there so that it's there if I need it instead of... Right, so maybe I don't leave my picture in there. And in here I added the library map. Does that... I hadn't actually considered that. But in general, I think... Actually, before I speak... No, I didn't think I had it in my modules either. Sorry, in my functions either. It's just a blurt of... Here's the stuff. Because it would be nice to actually get verbose output of, hey, there was a source. And here's what it was. And it worked. In general, I need a heck of a lot more error handling is a big thing that I'm missing at the moment. And some of my documentation's okay, but a lot of it needs work. Right. Now, I want to have a quick look at the pipeline for this thing, because I'm pretty sure all these months later I probably did something stupid back in the day. And I just need to take a fresh look at how it all fits together. So I'm just signing in on my other monitor here so I don't accidentally leak what I don't need to leak. Alright. Azure DevOps. Actually, is this live? So I am planning on doing a Git book with the help as well. At the moment, this is just empty, hurrah! But eventually I'll host documentation in a Git book as well. As well as, because at the moment I do have... I do have the markdown files in there, and this is what my online help, like the online switch, links to. But I haven't updated this since the first time I did the Platypus. After I initially ran that, I haven't kept it up to date, which, my bad. It's even worse than the in-module help at the moment. And sorry, I got distracted. BurntToast. Ha, that's fair enough. So I've got... right. So this was long before multi-stage pipelines. Which means I've got to build. Oh, jeez. Making myself laugh at my own. So the build is cook toast, and my release is eat toast. Ooh, yes, I should probably do the same and do exactly that. Build it in as an external help. Because one thing I always wanted to do is have updatable help as well. And I finally have the online resources to make that happen. Because back in the day I was trying to do it on the cheap. So, my build pipeline does what? In fact, this probably isn't the nicest place to view it. All right, bring me back. So on the 2019 image, I run my pest tests. I then compile the module. I then run the tests again. Publish the test results. Upload coverage stats. I forgot about that. Publish an artifact. Publish another artifact. Cool. And my build.ps1 file. Bootstrap compile and test. Bootstrap installs modules that I'm going to need. Sure. Compile builds my giant PSM1 file. Yeah, sure. All right. So I forgot about that. I also create a zip file for releases on GitHub. And create a release notes and a release version text file. And I believe the reason why I did that is because I couldn't get variables working at the time. So I was like, well, if I can't just use variables, what I'll do is create a text file and that'll be in my artifact and I can use that later. Which worked, but I should probably put the time in to just use variables. And then the test step is... got redundant stuff in there. It's not just me, those are two identical lines, aren't they? The zip file... The reason why I zipped it like that... So, I zip it and then it's included in one of the artifacts. And then in my release pipeline, in fact, we'll get to that in a sec, is pointing at it via the... So I think my problem was I didn't know how to download the artifact as a zip within the pipeline itself. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of that duplicate line. So if it's PHP, I'll run it with the N unit. And I'll just do the other thing. Then send the code coverage. Sure. So that's cooking the toast. Eating the toast. Alright, and you don't have to manually download the artifacts anymore either. If I remember correctly. Because I spent a long time when I first did this pipeline just expecting my artifacts to be there. And they weren't. So I set the version tag. Because I remember it just working when I did a newer one, and yeah, it was good. So I define my tag, publish to the gallery. Then I use the GitHub release action, which is out of preview now, but I'm not going to toggle that because I don't know what's changed. I wonder if that access token or OAuth is still relevant. Push to that, blah blah blah. There's my release notes, there's my release tag. Sorry, release tag, and there's the asset. Which I think... Did I actually do one using this? That's right. So I actually pushed the 0.70 release through this pipeline, which is why it actually has a changelog in it. Well, my releases normally had that. It's this bit that was automatic from the GitHub action. Evidently I was having some pester issues. Wow. And then of course announced the release on Twitter. Oh, we're still on version 2 of that, cool. So the question is, what do I want to do with the pipeline now? Because of course since then we've got multi-stage pipelines, which are an option. And the way things seem to be going, so I might as well jump on board. I can probably... So at the moment I test, then compile, then test again. I can probably do away, rather... What I can probably do is replace the first test step with a PS Analyzer run. So run PS Analyzer, then compile, then do a test, but test on a... I was going to say a couple of different OSs, but this doesn't work cross-platform. I can run it on a couple of different Windows versions, which is probably a good idea. So PS Analyzer, compile test, that's obviously pester. Are there images for Windows 10? If I can get different Windows 10 versions, that'd be handy. Then after testing, so with these release pipelines, after release, yeah, you can have gates and all sorts on them, and approvals, which I have a feeling I made it so that yeah, my main thing is because what I'd actually thought I'd done was make it so that my releases just go automatically if I updated like the PSD1 file. And looking at this, that's not the case, but what I would like to do is have it so I have to go in and click a yes, go and do the release type button. I'm just not sure if that's possible with the multi-stage pipeline, but I'd assume it would have to be. And that is the and GitHub. Because sending, oh, I remember. I remember now. Right. So I had it set that what I would have to do in order to send a release is I would click release, and then I would have, because then what I would do is I'd put in a description here, and that description would end up in the tweet. So that's how I sort of added a human element to my that release description, and what I write in there is how I added a human element to my tweet, so it wasn't just a new BurntToast is released, download it. I could add a message going, hey, finally did the thing, it's all good and stuff now. It'd be nice to be able to retain that and still have the coolness that is a release pipeline. So really, that's, all things considered, that's not a huge amount of changes to the pipeline. It's just switching over to a multi-stage pipeline, swapping out the pest test for a PS Analyzer, and rerunning the tests on a few different flavors of Windows. And then figuring out if you can, how to do approvals with the multi-stage. Yeah, that'll work. And then I can get the nice pretty view of the, in fact, let me see, because then once I've done that, I can get the nice pretty view up, like, like this that I happened to see on Twitter earlier. Because at the moment my only way to see the pipeline is... That's alright, but then it's in multiple different places and it's cumbersome. Yes. Yes, that was fortuitous timing seeing that pop up earlier. Right. I'm not sure if there's much else I want to get stuck into tonight. It was actually a lot more productive. We fixed a few more things than I expected to. In fact, let's head over to the projects. Did I actually test that that's working? In here. I'm pretty sure I did, but just to be sure. Huh, fair enough. It's funny that it colorizes it as a comment and then has an issue. Okay. So that imported. Huzzah! So that means my app logo here did actually take. Cool. So I am going to go and chuck that into done. Close my own issue. See, anything else? I do want to confirm that this one is still an issue. So there's curly braces popping up like this for some people, and I thought we'd found a fix for it. But what's actually happening is there's something weird happening in the background with these. So there's data payloads that allow you to have dynamic text in a toast notification. What I'm finding is that if you snooze a toast, does that get bigger? Yeah. When you snooze a toast, a lot of the metadata about it just disappears. And then when the toast comes back, the mapping for that dynamic data just up and disappears. And the result isn't nice, to put it bluntly. So how we see that is if we do a new toast notification and put the snooze and dismiss switch on it, and we'll need a bit of text. Not test, text. So doing a snooze and dismiss text, toast. That'll learn me. Right, snooze and dismiss. There we go. So toast notification with 2 custom pieces of text, and it's snooze and dismiss, meaning when it shows, we've got the text. We've got our snooze and dismiss buttons. And I probably should have customized this to make it quicker. That's a lot of work. 5 minutes. No, I said 5 minutes. I said 5 minutes. Wow. That's a new problem. So the reason why that's an issue, oops, didn't mean to click it, is when I do the snooze and dismiss switch, that's using a system default, like completely out of the box snooze and dismiss setup. There's no customization to it or anything. And if that's not working, that's very not good. In here. Alright, I am going to open this. Yeah, sure, let's do it in here. I was about to fall back on using the ISE for this, but let me do it right. Oh, and before when I said that the new BurntToast notification hides a lot of the other functions, this is what I mean. So that snooze and dismiss thing saves you from having to do all of this, and in fact the whole thing. But what doing this gives you is you can go in and go, this one is 1 minute. And let's make 60 the default. So you can customize every little nuance, like that's no longer a circle, I want that to be a square. Don't actually know if that's the right term, the IntelliSense wasn't working. But if I try... See, now the selection box has different items in it because we customized it up here. And if I... Yeah, it's not letting me pick anything. With... What are we now? 1909. So, given that's not working at all, it works there. Sorry, now I'm using my little notepad here to collect information about a bug report. Cool. So it works in here, which means if I go 1 minute and snooze, in about a minute, we should see that thing pop back up. Specify one of the following: default, none, or circle. That is a lot of options. Actually, while this is going, there is a way of checking for this data. Right. So you see how it's come back with these curly braces around it. That isn't good. So what I need is a Toast Notification Manager. Like so. Oop, where did that go? There. Did I specify my app ID anywhere? Didn't, but I need it. So my app ID is this fella here. So the app ID is one of those little things that have been a bugbear of mine for a while. It's basically what tells Windows the application that sent the toast. And it used to be that you could just chuck an arbitrary value into the registry and then use that value as your app ID, and Windows would take it and it would be happy and everything would just work. It turns out that was a bug that eventually got patched, and what it meant was if you were using an app ID like that, your notifications would come out grayed out, they would have a limited set of functionality, and it wasn't a good time. And I struggled for maybe a year or two to find a way of doing a custom app ID that actually worked. I ended up getting it to work with creating an installer via Wix, but since then Adam Driscoll's done a tool that he sort of has in conjunction with Universal Dashboard called UD Forge, and that can create an installer that does create an app ID, which is awesome, and I've been meaning to blog about it, but haven't had a chance. But yeah, app IDs are a royal pain. So then from the manager, I want to see scheduled notifications. And I want the default on that to be 1 so I can actually click it. Now, it's fair, and I'm actually getting the warning, which shows that it's working. If I look at the content on this thing, can I actually see the details? No. Bugger. Oh well, when I send it, and then snooze it, so this, when you snooze a toast, it effectively gets scheduled to come back at whatever the time was that it's being snoozed until. So for me, it should come back just before 11:34. Now, when you send a toast, it has, if I can find it somewhere, did I already build a mod? I've already got a function for looking up the history. Oh. Alright, let's clear all of that. Let's do this one more time. And while the toast is on screen, get BT history. So what we can see, this is BT history for, this is the history object of the toast that we just sent. And we can see that it has a tag and a group, and these are just methods of identifying a toast. And it also has a data object. I wonder if I can still get to that. No. Because now that I've snoozed it, well, until it comes back, it's... that's why I wanted this. So, now that I've snoozed it, and it's sitting there as a scheduled toast, we can see that both the tag and the group have disappeared. When it comes back, I'll run get BT history again, and we'll see that indeed the tag and group are gone, but also that data is gone as well. There we go. So if I look at BT history, no tag, no group, no data. And the no data is what's causing this to happen. So that in and of itself, the curly braces, this is getting a bit deep on the topic, but bear with me for a sec. That's the order it goes in, apparently. I could have just looked up there. Oh, it doesn't actually show the full detail. Aha, no, it does. Good. So the data is a key value pair. So what it actually means is you could have a key that says line 1, and then you could put the text in for line 1. And then you can have a key that says line 2 and a value. And then where it sees those curly braces, that's the key that it looks up. So this allows you to have toasts that you dynamically update the content of by updating the data payload on it. So your key could be, say, hours until a reboot, and you gradually decrement that the amount of hours. What I do, if you're not explicitly using a data hash table or dictionary, whatever it is technically, for that, what I do is go, okay, you've given me this piece of text, we'll just make that the key and the value. And then that's how we get our toast out of the box. Unfortunately, it's the system itself. Ooh, have a good one, Joel. And thanks for tuning in. You've been a really great help. In fact, for me, it's getting pretty close to midnight, and I wasn't actually expecting to last a full 2 hours for this first test stream. So we're likely going to call it in a minute or two anyway. But what I need to do is we need to update the UWP toolkit. I don't actually think that's going to help with this issue. So I think what I need to do is go back to an old option. Oh, that's a good point. So the reason why I go through this construct here is because what I was having to do before I did that was manually rip out the curly braces that were being added, because Windows was expecting those to be those placeholder strings. So what I would do is programmatically go into the XML, remove that from the XML itself, and then it would work absolutely fine. It would survive a snooze, all well and good. But that meant I couldn't do updatable toasts, and that was something I was actually getting some requests to support. Unfortunately, that means now snoozing is broken. But I'm not so what I'm thinking there is, if you do specify a data block, we can go through exactly as it is now, and then with the caveat that snoozing won't work. But we go back to the old method of ripping out the curly braces from the XML if you're literally just sending text and you're not looking to update the toast at all. Right, I'm actually going to send this through to the Git repository so it's all up there in the Git repository, so if anyone watching this happens to want to go and check out that file and perhaps add extra stuff to it. In fact, let's make that a... Let's make that explicitly a text file, because I assumed Notepad would have done that for me, but it didn't. Oh, I also want to add this get schedule get. Let's do it in code. I also want to add a function to get the snoozed notifications, not just the history. This is either a new function or a switch on... It's either a new function or a switch on get BT history, and I'm not sold on either option yet. Alright, let's push all of the commits from today up to GitHub. Done. Cool. So that's where I'm going to call it for tonight. My computer managed to last through it. Stream managed to stay live the whole time, which is great. It sounds like the music levels were okay. What I'll do is I'm going to chuck this up as a VOD on YouTube if I can manage to figure out how to download it. And then I need to think about when I'll be streaming again. Which I can hopefully do rather regularly, because it's a really good opportunity for actually working on BurntToast, and I really need to give it some love. Coming up on its 5th anniversary from when I first started on it. And in fact, give me one moment. Not sure how well these are going to come out on the Potato webcam, but I did get some holographic stickers created for the 5th anniversary. So I'll likely be giving those away at some stage. I just need to figure out how. Especially since shipping, even postage from New Zealand can be a bit of a mission. We'll see what I can do. So yeah, keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye out for future streams, and if you've got a request or a... Well, for BurntToast, if you've got a bug report or a feature request, do send it through, either on Twitter or on GitHub. Because it really helps to focus the development time if I know what people actually want. But yeah, so that's my first test stream finished. Thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you'll come by next time. Cheers.